Today, we're digging into some really common issues people face when learning English.
That's right.
We've got this short educational video piece that outlines some frequent mistakes. And, well, our mission here is to pull out the key stuff, the actionable things, to help speed up your learning. I think anyone who's learned a language or tried to has probably felt stuck at some point. So this should be useful.
Absolutely. And it's quite interesting how these same hurdles pop up for learners, regardless of their native language. Spotting them is really the first step.
Okay, let's jump into the first one. Word-for-word translation. This feels like, well, like the default setting, doesn't it?
It really does. You think of something in your language and then you just try swapping out the words for English ones.
Yeah, like a direct map.
Exactly. But that's where the trouble starts. Often, languages just aren't built the same way. They have different structures, different ways of saying things. So forcing that one-to-one translation, it usually sounds pretty awkward. Or worse, it can completely miss the meaning you were going for. Think about idioms. Translate, it's raining cats and dogs word for word into another language. It probably makes zero sense.
Yeah, definitely. So it kind of traps you in your own language's way of thinking.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. It stops you from really internalizing how English actually works, how speakers naturally put thoughts together.
Okay, so the fix the video suggests is learn whole phrases, not just single words.
Yeah.
How does shifting focus like that actually help?
Well, when you learn a complete phrase like, how's it going? Or, could you pass the salt? You're absorbing the grammar and the word order sort of automatically without having to dissect every little piece.
Oh, okay.
It's more about catching the rhythm, the flow of real speech. We use these chunks of language all the time without thinking. Learning them as units just makes speaking feel more, well, fluid.
That makes a lot of sense. Like learning musical phrases instead of just isolated notes. Okay, so error number 2, the video flagged. Being afraid to speak because you're afraid of making mistakes. I feel like this one's huge for a lot of learners.
Oh, definitely. It's a big one. That anxiety, that fear of sounding silly or getting it wrong, it can really hold you back.
Yeah.
But the thing is, language learning is an active skill. If you avoid speaking, you're actually cutting off your main source of practice and, crucially, feedback.
The video actually called it a giant error, I think. And the solution, just embrace the mistakes. That sounds simpler than it feels sometimes.
It does, yeah. But those mistakes are not really failures. They're more like signposts. They show you where your understanding might be a bit off compared to how native speakers talk.
Signposts, I like that.
When you speak and maybe you make a little error getting corrected or even just noticing how someone else phrases it slightly differently later, that's valuable data. It helps you adjust. Honestly, every single fluent speaker made tons of mistakes along the way. It's just a part of how you get there.
Okay, so shifting perspective from failure to feedback. Got it. That brings us to the third point. Studying a lot, but not actually practicing speaking enough.
Right. And this one's easy to fall into, isn't it? There are so many apps, books, websites.
Yeah.
You can spend hours passively taking in information.
Yeah, it feels productive, like you're doing something.
It does feel productive. But language isn't just knowledge you store in your head, like history facts. It's a skill you do. Without putting the theory into practice, it just stays theoretical. It doesn't become usable fluency.
That's like that analogy reading about swimming versus actually jumping in the pool.
Exactly that. You can know all the strokes, but until you get in the water.
So the video really pushes for practicing with others, communities, classes, that kind of thing. What's the magic in that real-time interaction?
Well, it's immediate. You get instant feedback, not just on words, but pronunciation, rhythm, how you string ideas together. Plus, you learn to adapt, to understand different accents, to ask for clarification, to think on your feet. And you pick up all the subtle stuff, too, the tone of voice, the pauses, the little things that make conversation natural. Textbooks can't really teach you that.
Okay, so let's recap the big 3 pitfalls then. First, trying to translate word for word from your native language.
Yep. Avoid that. Focus on phrases.
Second, letting that fear of making mistakes stop you from actually speaking.
Right. Embrace the errors as learning opportunities. Speak more, not less.
And third, getting stuck in study mode without enough active speaking practice.
Absolutely. Find ways to use the language, talk to people daily if possible.
It sounds like the overall message is really about making the learning process active and maybe less about just perfection.
Precisely. It's a journey, right? Recognizing these common bumps in the road just helps you navigate it a bit better, maybe speed things up.
So for everyone listening, maybe take a second to think. Does one of these errors sound particularly familiar to you? And if so, what's maybe one small thing?